This SoonerScoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Rodosovich, Bob Przybylo here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. It's a Stickball report. The first installment of the year. Things are going well. Neither Oklahoma softball or baseball has lost a game so far. 14-0 for the softball team as they head into the final, weekend of non-conference play before they head to South Carolina, which, as we found out during the unofficial 40 yesterday, South Carolina, pretty damn good. Didn't realize that they were undefeated. We'll see. We'll get to them in a second. Baseball obviously had a great weekend down at Round Rock, but it is a Thursday afternoon, and we're coming in off of the Lloyd Noble Center and the 83-82 loss to Kentucky on Wednesday night. And first things first, we're going to hit on basketball. We'll get to the Diamond Sports here in a second because just a heartbreaker last night, Bob. Hell of a college basketball game. Like, I walked out of there kind of amped up. That was fun.
It was.
Until it wasn't.
That's something we've seen a lot throughout the years. I think a lot of us came out like, that was just like Houston last year, where you're good enough to compete, you're good enough to be up there with the elite of the elite, but in the final seconds, you can't get it done. And then that's when you start lamenting about A&M and LSU and Texas, because we know if the OU team that played Wednesday night played in those games, those are all three of those are now wins.
It's a tough road to hoe because obviously everything that was important going into that one, Oklahoma standing within the NCAA tournament and basically on the bubble here moving forward with 3 games left in the regular season. And I think that to a certain extent, that one was a little bit more of a gut punch than the others because of the main actors, because of the main characters that were there last night as Otega Oweh scores the final 18 points for Kentucky over the final 8 minutes. Obviously the game winner with 6 seconds left. Oklahoma not able to make the play at the end, but it was impressive. That was impressive from Kentucky last night to kind of sustain all of the blows that Oklahoma threw them.
Yeah, I mean, both teams going back and forth, and Lamont Butler fouls out with 4 minutes. You know everything's going to go through Otega, and he just delivered. If it wasn't a jump shot, he delivered time and time again. Just incredible atmosphere, big Blue Nation really showed out, but OU fans did a good job of quieting them as well. Just very fun night. Now it's just can't be down in the dumps. You can't be broken. You got to rise back up to it. They got Ole Miss Saturday. The Rebels are going through it of their own, three straight losses. So if you can get a road win, we've been talking all season, go 1-1 every single week in conference, you're going to be okay. I thought they go 1-1. They'd beat Kentucky. They lose to the Rebels. Now you got to flip it.
Yeah, you got to flip it. You got to find some type of standing going down to Oxford on Saturday. You got Missouri in the midweek, and then the season finale, the regular season finale, down in Austin. Jalen Moore with 20 points last night. Jeremiah Fierce has 18 in 37 minutes, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. He played well, just didn't get the shot to fall at the end. And, I think that's kind of where this thing is at. And you wrote about it on Thursday boarding. The 4 losses at home by 4 points, by 3 points, by 2 points, and then obviously last night by 1 point. I think if Oklahoma doesn't hear their name get called, and, obviously I think a lot of people out there are going to have their certain opinions about what's going to happen over the final 3 games. You have nobody to blame but yourselves. And the way that you lost the A&M game, the way that you lost the LSU game specifically, the Texas game, and the kind of the no-show in the first half. But gosh, I think last night that was kind of the ultimate gut punch, just in terms of you had another opportunity in the final 4 minutes to get a big win, and you just weren't able to do it.
Yep. I think they're 2 wins. Some people would argue they're 3 out. I think if they get 2 more during this stretch, they're going to be okay. But if you can get 3, you lock it in. And if you don't, then you just lament about all the chances that you squandered in the early part of the schedule.
2 things else from basketball on Wednesday night. I thought the Glenn Taylor shot, the second 3 with a minute left, I know it puts you up by 4. I thought it was a terrible shot. You're going to have to live with that. I know that Porter, after the game, said
he had no issues with it.
They had no issues with it. I thought it was an awful shot. You can find a way to work and maybe get a little bit more, maybe get to the foul line, and you're up by 3 if you can make 2. all of the Bryson Goodine. Gosh, what am I thinking of? He had the. No, it wasn't the taunting. It was the stepped in bounds or in the lane before the free throw.
Lane violation.
The lane violation.
Yep.
Why could I not think of that? Let's be honest. I didn't do radio this morning. Slept till 11 a.m. It's one of those things that like those things add up.
Yeah.
You had Jeremiah Fears miss the front end
two.
of the front end of.
He did one in the first half and then one in the second half.
It would be a summer project, and this is completely guesstimating. It feels like Jeremiah Fears on front ends of 1-and-1s in the second half shoots about 35%. He's an 84% free throw shooter. The other thing, do you have a problem with them not calling a timeout? They had a timeout in their pocket with 6 seconds left. You get Jeremiah Fears going downhill. That's kind of the shot that they wanted.
That's what they went for against LSU as well. And then that one, Fears veered to the wing. This time it goes straight up the middle. You've got everyone off balance after Ortega's crazy shot. And what Porter mentioned, you call timeout. Now you allow Kentucky to double team Fears. And because you can't advance the ball. I know some people were in the mentions that you advance. No,
that's high IQ college basketball fans.
We're not women's college or NBA. So you couldn't advance it. If you double team Fears and you have a hard time getting it up the court in those 6 seconds, you take what you've got. Fears went in strong, but he went in against Ortega and Garrison, and it just didn't work out.
How about Brandon Garrison playing 27 minutes last night? I think going in, it was like there was a big fear of Amari Williams and what he was going to be able to do. I thought Big Mo and Sam Godwin, they played their ass off. I thought they played very, very well considering what we think this front court is, and you just don't have enough. Brandon Garrison with the big block at the end of the game, and that's where this thing is at as Oklahoma heads down to Oxford on Saturday. All right, let's flip over. This is a stickball report.
The good stuff.
This is a stickball report. Let's start with softball. Obviously, baseball's had a really good run to start the season. But I was telling George yesterday on the Unofficial 40, the way we talk about this softball team, it's like we're still poking holes and trying to find ways of who's going to be some of these main contributors as they make the turnover from a historic senior class from a year ago. But at the same time, you look up, they're 14-0 and number one in the land.
Because even Patty Gass was doing that.
Sure.
Saying, like, I'm having to teach the killer instinct. Like, I haven't had to do that for the last 4 seasons. And she was mentioning the fact that it wasn't a run rule against Wichita State on Sunday. But then you could easily just point toward that you had to go to extra innings against Bowling Green on Monday. Just learning how to show up every single game. Like, no one cares. Like, if you don't feel like being out there, no one cares. You just have to go out there and get the job done. They've been able to do that. I get the skepticism about the number 2 ranking. They've only, at this point, just played, a couple ranked opponents. Baylor's not ranked now, but they were at the time. The San Diego State win is looking like your best of the entire season. I understand why, for most polls, the Sooners are not at the top.
Over the course of the weekend, this past weekend with the home opener at Love's Field, which looked incredible considering the weather around here. As of late, it seems like this is the first week that the sun has actually come out for consistency in a couple days in a row. But 8-0 win over Tulsa, 8-1 over Wichita State. You had the Monday doubleheader that they have to have the Cassidy Pickering walk-off home run in 8 innings, 8-5, and then Abilene Christian run ruled them 9-1. We walk out of there, Sam Landry had a really good weekend, 15 strikeouts and 7 2/3. The Oklahoma pitching staff, just in general, 1.40 ERA. How real is that? Is this kind of a situation that we're still having to see, like how the competition matches up, and then you get into some of those bigger regional type 3-game series here once conference play starts? Is that where it's at, or is this real?
That's where I'm at. Okay. I love what Sam Landry's done through the initial 3 weekends, and I think maybe she's starting to separate herself just a bit in terms of being the ace. And what she's really doing, she's getting a ton of strikeouts.
Sure.
That is one. She is a K machine through the first 3 weekends, and she can do it with that changeup that has people just mystified. But she can also bring the heat too, and if she can do that in conference play, because again, that's what you're kind of grading on a curve through the initial weekends, just because the competition hasn't felt like this is the group that's really going to test the Sooners. And this weekend doesn't look like it either between Kansas, Marshall, Kansas City. You're looking to go an easy 5-0 to get ready for South Carolina. But what Bella Smith and Sam Landry have done in terms of being the portal additions in the circle, you couldn't ask for more.
Defensively, I know that there was obviously some talk coming out of that first weekend about Hannah Core in center field as she still comes back from the ankle injury in the first week. But defensively we pretty good there, or how do you feel about it?
Yes, still pretty solid. They had a couple errors. Still figuring out exactly who might be your shortstop between Garcia and Barker, but I'm not worried. The way Patty emphasizes defense, if you can't play it, then you're not going to be in the lineup.
As far as the offense, I think here over the last couple of years, you went through the lineup, sometimes 1 through 9, and it's like, yep, they get up to the plate in a big moment, they're going to deliver. You obviously saw Cassidy Pickering with the walk-off. Ella Parker's a known quantity. Yes. She's going to be amazing at the plate. How are some of these newcomers doing at the plate as far as not just power numbers, but just getting on base, that thing?
Yeah, you're seeing that with Abby Dayton, Ilana Agbayani being able to get on the base, use their speed. Lana had 4 stolen bases.
I was going to say, she had a massive weekend.
Yes, she had a very nice weekend in terms of getting on base and making it count. Then you got like Tia Malloy, you got Gabby Garcia, you got eventually it's going to start clicking, and you can tell how much they want to be out there in the competitive drive, but it's not getting the results just yet. But you talk about all the new faces. The only returning senior is Sid Sanders, and she's starting to show her leadership, which is a very different brand of leadership compared to Kinsey Hansen, Jennings, and Jada Coleman. Very much behind the scenes. We say leader by example, but she went a different way. It's like, no, if I get a chance to talk one-on-one with one of the other players, that's when I shine through. It's that type of personal connection that I'm able to bring in my third year here, that if they're in a slump, I can help them get through it. I've been there. I know what it takes, and she had a couple home runs Monday. See if she starts to take her game to that next level.
I was going to say, it seemed like Sid Sanders had a really good year her first year. It seemed like she took maybe a little bit of a step back last year, all things considered. Had a magnificent year, but when in comparison to the rest of the lineup, maybe took a step back. But with the 7 RBIs on Monday, the grand slam, it seems like things are kind of coming together for her offensively.
Yeah, you can see she understands the weight of being a senior, and she is totally fine with it. She's also, of course, much improved on defense. That's the only thing really that Patty wants to talk about with Sid, is how she came to Norman a subpar first baseman and now is right up there with what Patty expects and needs from that position. So it's just a credit to her and her work ethic, her ability to take the criticism, use it, and improve. And I think that's the type of attitude, when you see that from your senior, that can carry over into some of the younger players.
What's the road look like behind the plate for Oklahoma? Obviously filling the role of a Kinsey Hansen, who had seemingly been there for 20 years behind the dish for Oklahoma. What's that been like here as they got through this first month of the season?
Emmerling's been that's the one you're waiting to break out. It's like, you were too good at North Carolina to do what you've done through the initial 3 weekends. She only has 5 hits, 3 are homers. So, all right, you'll take that ratio, but she's got to have a lot more production. Seems like she's doing well in terms of defensively and calling games in that aspect, but you expect her to be a much bigger part offensively, and maybe that gets going this weekend.
As we said here at the top, they got a weekend here in Norman, and then they're done, or not done with non-conference, but then they move into conference play. And obviously a top 20 team in South Carolina coming up a week from this weekend, so about 13 days or whatever from now. South Carolina off to a 16-0 start. You look at the SEC schedule and you look at the SEC standings and just the teams that are in the top 25. It's gonna be a fun ride. I think it should be a lot of fun to see them come through, though. And it's kind of like baseball to a certain extent. You're gonna get into these 3-game weekend series. It's gonna feel like a regional to a certain extent.
It'll be 2 out of 3 will be okay. You're gonna have to start to live with that type of mantra. Like, you don't sweep,
win weekends.
You don't sweep every single series. If you get 2 out of 3, you're gonna be just fine. With South Carolina, they have a 3-game set with Duke here coming up.
And Duke struggled a little bit, haven't they?
Duke is 8th.
Okay.
So, struggle is tough because some of these teams
of the baseball team
were in so many elite tournaments that they didn't run the table. They took some losses, but they're still exactly where they want to be at this point. So we'll learn a lot about South Carolina with Duke this weekend as to what we can expect when they get to Norman next weekend. Kind
of weird to say, but there's still a lot to learn about this OU softball team. Yeah. And because they played in a couple of those preseason tournaments or early season tournaments, but it doesn't seem like it's
not the marquee
level,
ones. Exactly.
The level of competition that would make you think, okay, everything is fine. So even though they played 14 games, a lot to kind of learn about here over the next couple weeks with Oklahoma.
No doubt about it. They're really, and that's why everyone's so hesitant to put them at the top spot in the rankings.
Sure.
Just because of the teams that they played. And we'll see if that makes a difference. We're getting way ahead of ourselves in terms about seeding and stuff like that. But did this first month, did the way Patty navigated this initial month, will that hurt their RPI in the grand scheme of things?
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And, hey, when a team's going for their 5th consecutive national title, I think that it's kind of like the Thunder. You blow a game on Monday night, but at the same time, it's like, all right, they're 46-11, 47-11 now with the win on Wednesday night against the Nets. That it's like, okay, I think everything's going to be okay. Baseball. What a weekend. What a weekend down in Round Rock. You knock off number 7, Oregon State, knock off number 2, Virginia, in a marathon 12-inning game on Sunday evening. They just finished up a 2-game series with Texas Southern, ruled them on Tuesday night. It was a slog on Wednesday, a 5-4 win. Had to bring in Dylan Crooks out of the bullpen. But let's start with starting pitching. Obviously, going back into last weekend, Kyson Witherspoon, he gives up a solo home run in the first inning against Minnesota. And you thought, all right, well, here we go. And then he retired the next 13 batters, had a career high 12 strikeouts. Malachi pitched his ass off on Saturday in the Oregon State game, kind of kept everything at bay when Oklahoma wasn't getting offense going. And then obviously Kyle Branch in the 4th inning kind of started things, ignited him en route to an 8-4 victory. And then on Sunday, Cam Johnson pitched well. I thought Kate Crossland was really good. The bullpen was incredible over the weekend. To hold a lineup like Virginia to 1 hit over the course of 9 innings starting in the 4th, I don't think that's going to happen too often. And you saw some really strong arms coming out of the bullpen, whether it be a Dylan Crooks, whether it be a Kate Crossland, like I said on Saturday. Gavin Jones has been really good as a 2-way player for Oklahoma, doing a little bit of the DH here during the midweek. But all in all, Oklahoma now in the rankings. Obviously, D1 Baseball puts them in at 16.
For most
game
publications.
Well, we wrote about it. Baseball America stopped covering baseball, it seems, as they leave them out this week, which, I think was a topic of conversation on the interwebs. I don't care where they're at in the rankings. They deserve to be in, though, after winning the Round Rock Classic. Kyle Branch has been absolutely phenomenal.
Did you see that one come?
No, I don't think anybody did. I mean, he's leading Oklahoma in hitting. I thought it was kind of funny on Wednesday night. He had a little slow dribbler up the third baseline, beat it out down the line to score a run. And it's like anything he does right now is turning up aces. And, he's going to have some of those freshman moments. I think Skip would be the first person to tell you that he misplayed a play over at second and just covering the bag. Little things that, I think when you start playing some of these SEC teams, it could get you beat or get you into a tight spot. So you're going to have to clean that kind of stuff up. But all in all, 8-0, first best start since 2013. It's been a good ride for Oklahoma here in the early portions of the season.
What impressed you most about Saturday, Sunday? I think when they got down early, it's like, all right, they're coming back.
Yeah.
Reality. Like what impressed you most?
I guess it sounds cliche, but just kind of the resilience to dig themselves out of the hole that they dug on Saturday and then to stay in kind of punching distance with Virginia. And all of a sudden you're down 3-0 and it seemed like you were down 10-0 and then you storm back, you tie the game, you take the lead. The 4-run 4th inning against Oregon State I thought was massive too, because Malachi did keep you in the game, and it felt like you weren't in the game to a certain extent because Oregon State's so good. But you were able to string some hits together. And I think like the biggest thing for me coming out of the weekend, we knew the pitching was going to be good, but what they're getting out of a Trey Gamble, who's obviously new to the program, what they're getting out of a Sam Christensen, and just a production standpoint, Dayton Taki had the big hit against Virginia on Sunday. If you can get that type of contribution offensively from this group, they're going to be pretty good because that pitching is going to keep you in a lot of baseball games.
Now you got another home weekend coming up, another just one where you got to take care of business? Or is this something to be worried about?
No, I see Sun obviously coming into town, Cal State Northridge. It's a weekend that you should win. I mean, I don't know if you can sit here and just say, yeah, you got to sweep everybody, because that's not a reality in college baseball, as we saw on Wednesday night with them kind of toying around with a bad Texas Southern team. Although they should, all things considered, they probably will end up winning the SWAC, but neither here nor there. They did last year. CSUN coming into town. Then you go to Dallas Baptist next Tuesday, which, if you're an OU baseball fan, you know the history between Oklahoma and Dallas Baptist, the Dallas Baptist group. Dan Hefner, they've usually got the best of Oklahoma. But I do think it's going to be interesting because you go into next weekend, and because of the starting pitching, Jacob Golston was a little bit rocky on Tuesday night, making his Sooner debut on the mound, or as a starter on the mound. You have options on that midweek role, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they do. Landon Victorian, a true freshman, pitched on Wednesday. I thought he was pretty good, and he was a kid that was, I believe, ranked number 3 player in the state of Louisiana coming out of high school. He was originally committed to LSU, which, I think is kind of like a barometer on like, oh, okay, Absolutely. This kid can play a little bit. You have options, and I'm really interested to see what they do in that midweek setting, and then obviously kind of what they do on Sunday. I think Kyson and Malachi are your Friday, Saturday guys. You like what you saw out of Cam Johnson. When he's good, like when the slider's really good, he's dynamic, and I think he's going to be in line to be somebody that could be a Friday night guy for Oklahoma at some point in his career. But you also have Cade Crossland, and he's one of those guys that, like, do you just keep him in the bullpen? And if somebody gets in trouble on a Saturday, if Malachi gets in trouble, or if Cam Johnson gets in trouble on Sunday, he's a guy that could eat up a bunch of innings, especially those middle innings. I'm kind of interested to see what they do there. I know that they're certainly not going to just take Cam out of the lineup or off the mound because he had a little bit wild at times against Virginia, but he was still able to get through there, and a little bit like Malachi, kind of kept you in a game. The bullpen, though, I thought was phenomenal over the weekend, whether it be Dylan Crooks, whether it be Jaden Barfield being thrown in there, the true freshman. He's thrown in a tie game in the 12th inning against the number 2 team in the country, and he was phenomenal. Took a little bit of step back on Wednesday, got into a little bit of trouble, got out of the 8th inning with a strikeout, wasn't able to close that door in the 9th inning, had to go to Dylan Crooks, who's going to be phenomenal. Michael Catalano has been excellent coming out of the bullpen. He saw 8 guys on Wednesday night, struck out 4. He's been a bright spot. And you know what? Shout out Jamie Hitt. I know it's it's the scariest thing in the world to put in the game threads, like Jamie Hitt's running in from the bullpen. It's scary, but at the same time, I thought he was pretty good. And he's hitting some low 90s. He has some pretty good stuff, pretty good movement with his breaking ball. And he's going to be a guy on the back end that you need to count on because they don't really have a whole lot of guys in that back end of the bullpen from the left side. And as much as Skip and crew like to match up, left versus right and right versus left, it's going to be important that you get some of these guys to continue to come on. Jason Bodine took a step back on Wednesday night. He just wasn't very good. It was the first time that Oklahoma had brought in a guy through 8 games of the season, had brought in a guy from the bullpen, and he kind of got beat up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So all in all, good thing that you're able to get out of there with a win. But yeah, that was the performance that I thought they were going to have on Tuesday night.
Yep, same.
Coming off of the massive weekend that was. So all in all, pretty good. I think this team has a chance to be really good.
Kyson, Malachi, maybe just go back to their initial recruitment.
Yeah.
Was this like were these major gets at the time?
Yeah.
Or has Skip developed them into that?
They were. And I think that, there has been some development, but I think at the same time, even somebody like a Kyson Witherspoon, he's taken a step from what we saw a year ago. And I think over the summer for both of those guys, being able to go up to the Cape, perform well, being able to go to Team USA, kind of just that added confidence of like, I am this good, and going out and doing it against elite competition has been really good. And, on the flip side of that, I think that somebody brought it up on the message boards that for this offense, for a Trey Gamble, for a Sam Christensen, for a Dayton Taki, even to a certain extent, some of the guys that played last year that are still rather new to the program, whether it be a Jackson Willits or a Jason Walk, Easton Carmichael, he's been around, maybe not so much, but I think just going to get some of these arms in practice every day has helped prepare them for this early onset of the season. And, I think at the same time, though, you can still take a step back and go, there's still a lot to prove. And Jackson Willis talked about that on Tuesday night, that even though they've had this fantastic start, they know what's ahead. And when you look at the top 25 and Oklahoma's ranked number 16 by D1 Baseball, that's ninth in the SEC. So it's going to be rather interesting, rather difficult. And it's all kind of a lead up to what to a certain extent, kind of like what the softball team's doing. Here in a couple of weeks, you'll be headed out to Columbia. to take on South Carolina. Obviously, it's a storied program, and I think that the home schedule still is just kind of unbelievable when you remember that they're playing the last 5 national champions here in Norman. It's a fantastic schedule. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to say the least.
Stickball's going to be fun.
Both of these teams, from what we've seen here through the first early portions of the season, they have the makings of a team that could be playing well into the postseason. And obviously that's where, one team with softball that's been to the top of the mountain, that's where it's expected to be. Oklahoma getting a taste in 2022 of Omaha and then hosting a regional last year here in Norman. It's in a good spot. And I think that it's been nothing but a positive so far. Defensively, they've been really good. A couple miscues on Sunday against Virginia. Scott Mudler threw the ball into left field that ended up costing them a couple runs there early in the game, but they were able to survive that. And I think that that's the big thing is you were able to beat Virginia, and I think you didn't certainly play your best game of the season, but you still were able to stay in it because of the pitching. And the offense is going to continue to take some strides, but I think from a power standpoint, there were so many questions about when you lose your 75% of the return production from a year ago. It's been a really good ride. And, not just specifically with Sam Christensen and Trey Gamble, but they've been really good of separating balls from strikes at the plate. And I think that that's a good step in the right direction, regardless of the level of pitching that they've been going against. If you can stand up there and get on base, it's going to be a good problem to have. So we'll see. The only really, truly bad thing right now is, I guess there's 2. Scott Mudler, he has the flu right now, so we'll see when he gets back. And I think that, it's not that big of a deal.
Is it going through the team?
That and when you get into they have 5 games this week, obviously with the 2 games against Texas Southern. I don't know if you necessarily want Easton Carmichael behind the plate every game. You want him in the lineup every game, but you do want to give him a couple days off. Scott Mudler's your backup catcher or your starting catcher, regardless, 1A, 1B. We talked to Skip about this on Tuesday night. I'm sure it's the same with softball. If you play in one game, you burn a red shirt. They have Cole Hansen, Kinsey Hansen's younger brother on the team. He's I guess your third string
emergency catcher.
But do you burn a red shirt for a solo game on a Saturday against CSUN and then burn his red shirt? You're really kind of put in a tough spot. And I know that Skip wants to get some of these younger arms into midweek games, and he's always been a guy that has said that a midweek game shouldn't count against your RPI, so you can try to develop guys, and you just can't do that in college baseball. You can't do that at Division I level. So it is going to be interesting. I know that's a very small thing in the grand scheme of things, but maybe something to watch here moving forward. Hopefully you get Scott Mudler back this week, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The other thing, I don't know if they're going to see Grant Stevens this year. It sounds like he has an arm injury it just – on a personal level, it sucks because you remember what he did last year during the postseason. He was going to be an arm from the left side that you could maybe count on, especially out of the bullpen. And if you're not able to get him back, I have a sneeze coming on. It's going to be ground shifting if it comes through. If you're looking for somebody from the left side out of the bullpen, it could be tough if you don't have a Grant Stevens. I think they have some guys that could, but it kind of falls to the feet of a freshman like a Jaden Barfield. He's going to have to pitch some big innings out of the bullpen for Oklahoma moving forward. So still need confirmation from Skip on just the, specifically what's going on with Grant. But for the, I guess, interim, I don't think you're going to see him for quite a while, and it could be a season-ending type of deal. So that sucks. I hate it for him. 5th, 6th-year guy. He was kind of, kind of one of those veterans within the clubhouse. And not to say that he won't be there, but it's a little bit different when you can go out and do it, kind of like a Sidney Sanders. It's easier to be a leader when you're going out there every day. So all in all, 22-0 combined. Oof. It's been a fantastic start, and it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks as we ramp this thing up for both softball and baseball.
Absolutely. It's amazing to think we're at the 4th weekend, and then boom, conference play is here. And for softball this weekend, what you're watching, did Patty answer all the questions she needed to? And tinkering with the lineups, tinkering with where they're playing on defense. Was this enough time to have her feel confident that going into SEC play, this is where I want this person to be, this is where they're hitting the lineup, and this is how we're going to make it work?
No doubt. All right. We will be back next week for a Stickball report. Obviously, the Oklahoma women basketball team in action on Thursday night down in Gainesville. Just a couple more games left in their regular season. Obviously, just 3 left on the men's side. we'll see where this thing is at here with the Hoops Report coming up next week as well. So for Bob Prusbillo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.